Round one of the NHL Draft is coupled with some very interesting Sabres rumors. We'll talk defensive prospects. We'll talk Steven Stamkos and the trade that the Sabres made with the Sharks. All coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You could also check us out on our YouTube channel, Sneaky Joe DiBiase, here on Draft Day, 7 o'clock tonight, for the Sphere, the Draft. The Sabres picking number 14. That has changed, of course, because they made a trade yesterday. We will get into that. But the basics of the trade, number 11 to San Jose, number 14, and number 42 to Buffalo. So the Sabres move down 3 spots in the first round, and in exchange, they get a second-round pick. Hard to not like that trade. It's not a major move by any means, but hard to say no, I think, if the Sharks call you up with that offer. I got a little bit more on that trade coming up, though, in the middle of today's show. I've got some defensive prospects to look at for the 14th pick of the draft. There are only a couple, actually, that are within range around where the Sabres will pick. But I do think both of the guys that are projected around 14 on the blue line both make a lot of sense for the Sabres stylistically, and they're both right shot guys, so we'll get into that a little bit later on in today's show as well. If you want updates on the draft, I'll be on the text line a lot tonight, going back and forth with you on the picks that are made. Whether or not we get a trade or not, of course, would be the most exciting thing that could happen tonight. I do feel like on some level, fans will be disappointed if the Sabres make a pick tonight. I don't think they'll be mad, but I think a little bit of disappointment because the hope has been that they will move this pick. They will either move it straight up or they will couple it with one of their bunch of prospects, and they will go get a proven veteran player like a Martin Necas, who we've talked about on this show, who has been rumored to be an idea for the Sabres. So we'll see if we get a trade like that. It doesn't sound like the Necas trade is going to happen. Kevin Adams met with the media yesterday upon arrival in Vegas, and he said that he had a couple of trades that got very close, but things fell apart right at the very end. And that might just be Adams being honest, right, and telling you what has actually happened, and I don't want to criticize him too much for that. But I don't really know why. I hope he doesn't think he's going to get credit for that. But I hate when GMs do that. Hey guys, I tried to make a trade. It didn't happen. It's like, hey, I know you all want trades, but I tried to make them, so give me the credit. Like, no, man, that's not the job. You're basically in sales, right? When it comes to trades, you got to close. If you don't close, you don't get participation trophy here. You got to get the job done. And this Sabres team needs a trade. They need a prospect for veteran trade. There has never been a team that's made more sense for. And it's up to Adams to find players that will be willing to come to Buffalo, and it's up to him to then negotiate with that team and be willing to pay the price. And if you've got to overpay, well, that's the boat you're in. That's the benefit of having all of this, all this capital, all these assets. Add that second round pick they acquired yesterday to the pile. You have so much stuff, you can overpay, and you're still going to be okay at the end of it because you've got all this stuff. You're not going to be hurting if you trade one more prospect than anybody else would for a certain player, one more pick than somebody else would. So that's where I'm at on the Adams front with, I tried to make a trade. It just didn't fall through. That's not the job. The job is not to try to make trades, and the job is not to try to make the team better. The team is to try. It's to do it. Right? It's the job is to do it. You get hired and fired based on whether you do it, not whether you try to do it. And he's trying to do it. That is a good thing. I will say that. That is a good thing, and that's why I'm optimistic going into tonight. Glass half full mentality going into the first round of this draft and day 2 of the draft with the 2 second-round picks. Glass half full that they're looking around the league. They're calling teams. They're calling agents. They're working with players. They are trying to make a deal work for either a top 6 forward or a middle 6 forward, somebody that is proven that is going to help their team. You've got all these rumors that point to the Sabres being interested in Martin Necas, in the Sabres being a team that was interested in Logan Couture a week ago before Mike Greer shot down any idea that they would move him. There have been others. There were a couple of Flyers, right? That were veteran players where the Sabres were connected loosely to them. It does feel like a lot of the guys that are available or are going to become available, the Sabres are rumored to be interested in. That's another reason to be optimistic, is that Adams seems to be in on a lot of it. And listen, if you go 9 for 10, if you swing 10 times, all you really got to do is hit the ball once. Just hit the ball once. You can miss 9 times, but keep swinging. Keep swinging for these veteran players that can help you. And one guy that I do not expect them to land in any way, shape, or form, but is an exciting idea. It's a dream idea, head to the clouds type of idea that, again, I'm not expecting them to pull off, but good to see any sort of connection that would say they're in on it. Chad DeDominicis, who is as plugged in right now with the Sabres reporting stuff as anybody is, he tweeted today, I mentioned this a few months ago, I'll throw it out there again. I do believe the Sabres will take a run at Stamkos. Chad says, I do believe the Sabres will take a run at Stamkos. That's a hot idea. Steven Stamkos, free agent. The reason he's coming up today is Elliot Friedman went on with the guys at the Pat McAfee show, by the way. Maybe I'm not the biggest Pat McAfee fan by any means, but definitely good for the league when the number one sports talk show on ESPN that they paid hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire, the number one show on ESPN, does kind of routinely talk hockey. They did more hockey coverage and better hockey coverage than especially like First Take or Get Up on ESPN than anybody else did during the playoffs. And there they are today bringing Elliot Friedman on the show. Hey, talk to us about Jake Gensel. Friedman said Gensel, 8 years, $8 million to Carolina is very close. So there we go. We got Jake Gensel news on the Pat McAfee show, the number one sports show in the country right now. Friedman, in the course of that visit, did say that it does not look like a deal is going to get done between Stamkos and Tampa Bay, and he will test unrestricted free agency. We'll see. This happened 8 years ago, where we thought Stamkos was going to hit the open market, and then at the 11th hour, he didn't. He signed back in Tampa Bay. That could very well happen again, but maybe it doesn't. Some indication shows right now that it won't. I like reading what Chad wrote, that they'll at least go for it. We know we're probably not going to get him, but what the hell? He fits what we need. Let's go give him the best offer. He's not saying that. That's what my mentality would be walking into that meeting is I'm going to give him the best offer. I'm going to put the best package I can together. I'm going to sell him the best I can. We're in the right direction, but we just need a final piece, leader, proven top 6 forward like you to kind of pull everything together and then help us establish that winning culture, and then we'll be on our way. And you know what? We know you're a Toronto guy, right? You're from Toronto. And you listen, as long as you're the Sabres, Stamkos from Markham officially, you only have so many sales pitches. You might roll your eyes at that as a sales pitch. I actually legitimately think it's a good sales pitch for the Sabres. I don't know how many better sales pitches they have than you get to be near your hometown, Toronto, without the circus. If you don't want the crazy media frenzy, tons of, getting mad at you when you don't perform in the playoffs. It's a circus in Toronto. If you don't want that, but you want to be close to home, here you go. This is your spot. I think that's what helped get Skinner here when he signed back on that extension. You might think it's a joke. You might think it's something you roll your eyes at. I legitimately think it's one of the best sales pitches that this team has right now, given the 13-year playoff drought at the very least. So I'd sell Stamkos on that. Give it a shot. Be close to home. will give you the most money, will put you on the top 6. Want to play with Thompson and Tuck? You want to play, Tage would be a good line mate, I think, for him. That's the thing about Stamkos. All right, let's entertain the idea for a moment. The 1% chance in my mind that he would come here. I think you have to give him the best offer. I don't think you are in the ball game at all with Stamkos unless you're giving him the best offer money-wise. You have no other hook, line, and sinker. It's got to be the money. So he's 34 years old. I'm thinking like a 4-year deal, $10 million. Not kidding. I think that's what it would take. You want to be in the ball game with him? You could tell me, I don't want to do that. And you could just tell me you don't think it's a good idea. That's fine. I just would like it known to you, the listener, if you want Stamkos, that's probably the price. You got to be in the 10 million range if you want to have any chance at him. So 4 years, $10 million. You take him up to age 38. That's an overpay. That's more term than he should get. That's how you get him. If they were to do that, on ice impact, he's kind of perfect. He is the veteran, leader, culture, show the young guys how to win, show the young guys the right habits, practice-wise throughout the year, pair him with a new veteran coach in Lindy Ruff. Like, to me, I think they have experience, by the way, Lindy and Stamkos play at the Olympics. Although Stamkos actually might have missed that because of an injury. I have to double-check that. I shouldn't have said that. But anyways, Stamkos, I think, would give you all of those qualities, but would, on top of that, still give you the on-ice production. Now, his surface numbers don't look like they've fallen off. Last year, tremendous. 40 goals, 41 assists, 81 points in another 40-goal season, which is like his 6th 40-goal season of his career. Great season for Stamkos. But some of the underlying numbers do show a little bit of a dip at age 33 in Tampa last year. The amount of scoring chances that he had went down. His shooting percentage was a little bit higher than the year before, just by a little bit. His puck possession numbers came down a little bit. His defensive numbers came down a little bit. I do think we started to see a little bit of a decline. I don't think we saw a massive decline. I would never say that, especially given he scored 40 goals. That is the end result of all of this. But we saw a little bit of a dip, maybe a little bit of a sign that he's going to start to head downhill little by little as we go forward. The thing, though, that I would say to that is one reason you might not care totally about that is a little bit of a dip from what Steven Stamkos has been is still a bona fide top 6 winger. One of your better top 6 wingers. Okay, instead of 40 goals, is he going to score in the low to mid 30s for me? If you told me, all right, his average goal total in like a 4-year stretch, let's play that 4-year contract out. If you look at his career, what's on average, what do you expect from him for 4 years? If he were to stay healthy, which has been a problem for him, but if he were to stay healthy, what'd you expect? Yeah, you expect him to average like 40 goals, at least, maybe more than that. Early in his career, you'd expect him to average 50. What if you told me over the next 4 years he averages 31 goals? Would you take it? It's not worth $10 million, but if you combine that with the leadership stuff, you combine that with the appeal to win right now, maybe you could sell yourself on that. And that's why it's interesting to me. It's definitely interesting to me, but again, not fully expecting that he's going to come here. I would imagine he's going to want the best chance to win another Stanley Cup that he can get. So cool to see, though, that they're at least going to chase that idea if Chad is right on that. All right, timeout here. When we come back, the trade the Sabres made yesterday with San Jose. I'll tell you why I like it, why it was a no-brainer, and why I do think it could have a little bit of an impact. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented here on the show by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring huge wins home. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back. Locked On Sabres podcast. Draft day, 7 o'clock at the Sphere. Looking forward to talking some prospects, especially once they get into the organization and we can really hyper-focus on their strengths and weaknesses. We'll have a lot of that coming tonight. We'll talk some defenseman prospects coming up in just a matter of moments. But first, we have to talk about the pick change. Last time we spoke, the Sabres were slated to pick number 11. Now, they are slated to pick number 14, and that is after the trade they made with San Jose. We'll get into that. First, I want to remind you, if you want to check out anything NFL related, anything on the NBA draft, Bronny James going to the Lakers, and you're sick of all that screaming on ESPN, First Take, Fox, whatnot, check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel. It's available on YouTube, also on Amazon Fire TV. You can find it there. Go to the channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the trade the Sabres make, San Jose gives 14 and 42 for pick number 11. The Sabres move down 3 spots, and they get a second-round pick in exchange. Second-round picks are not what they are in the NFL, but they're not nothing. And I'll explain why they have more value in some situations than others. What's weird to me about this trade, before we get into that, why the day before? Very strange to me that the Sharks would want to make this trade the day before the draft. I also would guess that Mike Grier, the Sharks GM, calls Kevin Adams to offer this trade. I would imagine this is a Sharks idea, not the other way around. I have serious questions, by the way. I love Mike Grier. When he was a player for the Sabres, I loved Mike Grier. Of course, part of the beloved 0506 Sabres. I have real questions about him as a general manager. There's a lot of stuff in the first 12, 18 months of him as a GM that have me scratching my head. You know, I miss the days of the Peter Chiarellis of the NHL and the, who was Jay Feaster, who was in Calgary for a while. Every era every, couple of years, there's that one really bad GM that everyone knows, oh, you could pick on that guy. At least fans know it. And I'm starting to wonder if Grier is that. Because there's a lot of head-scratching moves. And this, to me, is one of them. Do you really think you know how the top 10 picks are going to go to a T the day before? And if you were to say, oh, well, maybe he's got 12 top-tier draft players, and then he's got a tier break. Okay, so, yeah, I get it. By going to 11, then you guarantee yourself one of those top-tier guys. But do you really think it's not likely that at 14, you would get one of your 12 guys? You think everyone else's board is exactly the same as yours? That there can't be 2 off-the-board picks in the first 13? Like, of course, that always happens. So I don't know why Grier thought he had to make that trade today, and he gives up a second-round pick to do it. The Sabres, to me, it's no different. They're no less likely to make a trade for a veteran by going to 11 to 14. The forward prospects that we talked about the other day on the show, almost all of them to me are still about within range at 14. Maybe Tija Ginla is one that no longer you really have a shot at, if you even thought you did in the first place. But for the most part, I think otherwise you're good. So I love this trade. Here's the thing, though. The Sabres didn't need another second-round pick. They already have too many prospects as it stands. Too many to all make the roster. You can never have enough assets, but what you want to do is flip those assets to proven talent, and that's not what this trade was. This trade was expanding on your future talent, expanding on your prospect pool. So that's fine. If you could take that for free, then you do it. But what I'd love to see happen is that second-round pick, or both second-round picks, at least one of the two that they have now, gets spun into something that can help them right now. And this is where I'm at with that. A second-round pick, I don't actually think is that valuable. If you look at the odds, if you look at the history of second-round picks in the last decade plus, the percentage chance that you are going to get a legitimate impact player, subjective on what your definition of that would be, but someone that's like a top 6 guy, top 4 defenseman, it's like 10% if you're lucky. of a second round pick becoming that player. For a guy to even make the NHL on a regular basis as a second round pick, even that is close to 50-50, maybe a little bit above that. It's not all that likely that you're going to get a great player with pick number 42. But it could happen. And again, you take your stab at it. To me, where the real value is in these second round picks is teams still think they are valuable in trades. If you want to move the second round pick for a proven player, you often actually get a decent guy as opposed to, this 50-50 shot I get an NHL player and a 10% shot and I get an impact player. To me, the value in second round picks is trading them. The Sabres, a year and a half ago, or a year and 3 months ago, traded a second round pick along with a fifth for Jordan Greenway, who's not my favorite player, but he's an NHL player. He's a decent bottom six NHL player. He helps you win, in a minor role. The Sabres tried to put him on the top six, which that's not going to help you win. But if he's in your bottom six, it'll help you win. Since he's been traded, here's some other players that have been traded for second round picks to show what the Sabres could spin that second pick around into. The Kings traded Sean Durzi to Arizona. Sean Durzi's a decent defenseman, 23-minute-a-night defenseman that got traded for a second-round pick, a 23-minute-a-night defenseman. How about Ross Colton going from Tampa to Colorado for a second-round pick? Decent bottom six forward, right? But a guy on the team. How about after that, Anthony Mantha? Now, this is at the past deadline. Anthony Mantha for a second and a fourth. You got to limp in a mid-round pick for a 20-goal scorer that's very good defensively. Again, deadline deal, a little bit different. Alex Wenberg to the Rangers from the Kraken. Okay, there you go. There's another one. A decent bottom six player. After that, Tyler Toffoli. That was a second and a third, so keep that in mind here. But Tyler Toffoli, goal scorer, proven, goes to Winnipeg. Past that, Ryan McDonough this offseason goes from Nashville to Tampa, defenseman that will be in their lineup. I think he's overpaid. I didn't love that trade for Tampa, but a guy that's going to play for Tampa Bay. Yesterday, Andrew Mangiapane goes from Calgary to Washington. I wonder if the Sabres were in on that, the way Adams was talking. And not an amazing player. He scored 35 goals a couple years ago, but otherwise he's never top 17. He's just a guy. He's a middle six guy. Okay, second round pick. It's kind of like a free player maybe. And not a great player. Maybe a decent player, though. Maybe a guy that's going to play 15 minutes a night for you. Maybe a guy that's going to score 15 to 20 goals. Maybe a guy that's going to give you more physicality like Jordan Greenway did. A minor player. A role player. But I kind of feel like they're getting that for free with this trade if that's the route they want to take. If they don't want to make all their picks. If they want to spin some of it into other stuff. Second round pick, you'll get a real NHL player for a second round pick. And I'd like to see the Sabres pull that off. I'd love to see them turn that pick around, spend it, go get a guy that's going to play in your bottom six. They want to remake their bottom six to be tougher to play against, to be a little bit more diverse, a little bit more versatile than what they've been. Here you go. That's one tool you can use to get it, and I feel like they just got it from San Jose for free. The Sharks, I guess, are going to go for maybe Yzerman, who we talked about the other day, Macklin Celebrini's buddy, who Celebrini's going to, obviously be the first overall pick. So love the trade. No qualms about it at all. I don't know how you could dislike it. I think you could, of course, argue that it doesn't actually mean that much. But I do think it's an easy one. I don't know how anyone would say you would say no to it. When we come back, now that they're at 14, defensemen, I think there might only be two that make sense for them. But I think the two might actually be near perfect fits. I'll explain why when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. We're brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. There's a lot of good soccer on right now. If you're a big soccer fan, you got the Euros heading into the knockout rounds. Copa America, man, Team USA, not great. But they're not dead yet, and we still got a tournament to watch here in the United States. I love sports. Never, ever want them to stop. Wimbledon, too. But playoffs wind down. We get fewer games. Sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All you got to do, open the app, dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. It is draft night at the Sphere. It'd be very cool to see what they do with the Sphere. Are they going to do highlights on the giant LED screen in the background? Like, is Bettman going to announce the pick? Or I guess Bettman will bring up the GMs. The GMs announce the pick, and then that player's highlights will go on in the background, or will they have some nature landscape? Like, I wonder what they're going to do with that. I know for bands, there's a company actually designs it for all those bands. I guess they would probably be in charge of the NHL Draft too. I just don't know what we're going to get. Maybe like, Lake Alberta, or not Lake Alberta, Lake Louise, like some frozen pond landscapes that look really cool in the background. Lake Tahoe, right? We could maybe do that too. All right. Defenseman. We talked forwards the other day. If you missed that, check it out in our feed. The last episode, you can check it out on YouTube as well. And if you got an idea player you like, what's your favorite idea? Text it in. If you're not a texter already, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. We talk draft throughout the day on the text. I think defenseman makes more sense for the Sabres in a vacuum. If you didn't know anything about the players, if you didn't know anything about the board, I think in a vacuum you'd say defenseman makes more sense than forward does because they have more forwards in the pipeline, especially right shot defenseman. Henry Jokiharju, who's a restricted free agent and they need to figure out a contract with, is like their only semi-young right shot defenseman. They don't have a lot of that in their pipeline at all. All of their top young forwards are defensemen. Dahlin, lefty. Although, as I mentioned, he does like to play the right. Really count him as the right. Power, lefty. Samuelson, lefty. Byram, lefty. Johnson, lefty. They're all lefties. Get a righty in the building. Well, at 14, looking at Bob McKenzie's rankings, looking at elite prospect rankings, there's only two defensemen that I would say are within range of the same. At Bob McKenzie's, for instance, his 9th ranked player through his 20th ranked player. In those 11 spots, he has two defensemen ranked. From 9th to 20th. Sabres picked 14th, right smack dab in the middle of that. Two defensemen. Well, let's talk about those two defensemen that are right around ranked in the middle of the first round on most people's boards. Both of which, by the way, are right shot defensemen. So if you're someone that wants to see if you want to go for pure need, that's right shot defenseman. And there might be two guys that make sense for that. Number one that we'll tackle here, Carter Yakimchuk, Calgary, WHL. Big body, 6'3". He's played 202 games. He's played 66 games for Calgary, and he has 30 goals in that time, 71 assists. He is a big guy, 6'3", already above 200 pounds. Maybe he definitely has a more filling out to do, but good puck skills, more so shooting. He has a big shot, and he's a good finisher. From what I've read about him and what I've watched about him, he lacks currently the ability to be a fluid, efficient passer. And I don't like that. This is why he's not one of my favorite ideas. Early on in the draft process, doing just a little bit of digging on him, I actually picked him in our Locked On mock draft that we did a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I've changed my tune on him, and this is the reason why. In today's NHL, I just don't think you could be an effective defenseman unless passing and vision are one of your higher marks. You've got to be good at that, because otherwise all you're doing is getting your head down and you punt it to center and you give the puck away all the time. You can't be a top-level defenseman in the NHL anymore unless you're able to pass the puck efficiently and effectively all the time. So that scares me. The other thing about him is skating, I guess, is a little bit awkward, and that's going to be a bit of a work in progress. So he's got size, he's got physicality, he's got a booming shot, but not to me the type of defenseman that works in today's NHL. I would not like to see the Sabres draft Carter Yakimchuk today off of Calgary's team in the WHL. I would pass on him. Bob McKenzie has him ranked number 13th, by the way, on his list. And that's usually where he's about ranked. The other defenseman that I like the idea of a lot more, one of my favorite ideas for the Sabres in the middle of the first round, Adam Juracek, brother of David Juracek, who we've talked about on this show, Columbus prospect, who I still like the idea of the Sabres trading for, but he doesn't seem to be on the trade market anymore. His brother, Adam Juracek, Czech Republic, or Czechia, I should say now, 6'2.5", at 18 years old. Only 19 games played last year, 1 assist. Now, to be fair to him, he was playing against men. And the reason only 19 games, and the reason why he's maybe not higher ranked, he didn't play a lot last year because of injury. He got injured in the first game of the World Juniors, and that's the last time he played. So it's been a while for him. You don't have a recent sample size to look at from January on. So that's a reason why he's fallen a little bit here. The type of player that he is, though, at 6'2", all-around, complete defenseman. Very good passer, good puck skills. Actually, one similarity with him and Yakimchuk, he also was described as being an awkward skater. But maybe that for him is just with style. Because I did see that while he might be an awkward skater, he's not a bad skater. Like, he's still fleet of foot. He's got quick feet. Maybe he's got some technique work to do, but he's not slow. Like, he's not going to get, again, he's got some technique stuff to work on, but the raw speed is there, and he feels like someone, he's described as someone, I think, that's going to get better as a skater when he arrives in the NHL. And that won't be a problem by the time he shows up. But when you hear the things like vision and puck skills and how efficient he is, solid top four defenseman is his ceiling, according to a lot of guys. Solid, well-rounded two-way player, power play and penalty killer. Like, this guy does it all. He was going to have a huge role for Czechia, probably playing 25 minutes a night more for that team at the World Juniors if he had not got injured. He's very good also, what I read, at getting pucks through from the point. He's good at finding those lanes. He won't always give you the giant clap bomb, but if he's got to get that wrister through that's a little softer and easier to tip because there's a quick lane available on the power play, then he's going to do it. So I like all-around type of defenseman. What I saw for a comparison for him, which I really like, Jacob Slavin, Devin Tays, Charlie McAvoy. Like, these are all-around defensemen that I do think are all top-pair guys, right? I know McAvoy just had a bit of a tough playoff, but Tays is a top-pair guy for Colorado. McAvoy's a top-pair guy for Boston. And Slavin, it depends because they've been so loaded if he's top-pair or second-pair, but, you could absolutely put him on the top. So I like Juracek as an idea a lot. I'm good bypassing the injury concern. It was one injury last year. I would hope that he could get healthy, get some of that skating stuff cleaned up, get a little bit bigger, right? Because 6'2", 167 pounds. That's the big difference here. He's got way more filling out to do. He's got a lot of maturing to do. Maybe someone that doesn't play for a couple years. He's half an inch smaller than Yakimchuk, but he's almost 40 pounds lighter. So he's got to get a lot bigger in that area. So Juracek and Yakimchuk. Like, I don't really know who else you'd look at. You could go down to Stian Solberg from Norway, who's usually ranked in the 20s. EJ Emery from the U.S. program. I mean, that's kind of it. There's not many defensemen on the back end. It's a very top-heavy class. Like Bob McKenzie's rankings, for instance. You have 5 defensemen ranked in the top 8, and then you only have 5 defensemen for the rest of the first round. The next 24, you have 5. 5 in the first 8, 5 in the next 24 after that. Defensemen are going to go early, and I'm not sure they're going to go often after that. So those are the 2 top names for the Sabres tonight. All right, enjoy the draft. We'll talk about it on the text line. If you're not a member, if you want the live up-to-date picks, maybe you got plans tonight and you still want to stay plugged in, you want to be on Twitter every second of your night. Breaking news text alerts, we'll have them for you throughout the draft. We'll have some conversation back and forth about it as well. I'll tell you if I like the picks or not. We'll do some digging on it as well so you can learn more about these guys. If the Sabres pick anyone at all, because it's of course possible that they trade the pick tonight. To sign up, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres. Enjoy the draft. We'll have the scoop on everybody they pick after the draft is complete Monday. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you then here in the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.